I'd like to give all of our coaches, players, and families an update on where I think we're at in the recruiting legislation age that we've now entered. I understand that most of you, if not all of you, should have a lot of questions and feel uncertain about what's going to happen here in the future, because finally there's been some legislation that has taken place that should allow us to create some balance to our recruiting culture. But that doesn't mean that you're going to stop feeling things. That doesn't mean that you're going to stop having questions. That's where ultimately my role as the president of this organization, and having the amount of years of experience that we do, so close to 30 years in the recruiting industry, that we want to be able to pass on things that are very valuable to all of you. So a couple of opinions that I have as of, it's June 12th right now, and so kind of where we're at, because it's really important that we understand that our experience is going to allow us to feel good about managing and handling everything that's thrown our way. Don't worry, you are in good hands. Part of those good hands means that we are going to adapt and adjust to everything that happens in front of us. We do not have a history as firecrackers of chasing the back end of what's happening. We are very strong influencers in the softball world, and we honor that responsibility and we take a lot of pride in it. I want you all to understand that it's going to be okay. So many of you at the younger levels, possibly even 12s, and especially 14 and unders, you're used to college coaches populating your events, and they're all over the place. So you've had that pressure. You've seen the college coaches in your stands, and I hope most of you admit that you feel the stress that not only you feel as families, knowing how important these situations are, but that your daughter feels this stress. The absolute best part about this legislation is that if the influencers at the college level say to each other, we're no longer going to populate 12 and under nationals. We're going to eventually stop populating 14 and under events. We're going to start concentrating on 16s and 18s. And in fact, this first recruiting weekend that we noticed this last weekend at our Zoom in a June event, we noticed a lot of coaches spending more times at 16 and under games. Don't freak out if you're a 14 and under player, team, or family. Don't feel like you're on the outside. My goodness, if you're a 12 and under family, and you know that there are 5 other kids at 12 and under across the country that have already verbaled. You realize that those verbal commitments will not have anything else to kind of relate to for another 5 to 6 years. Those players are going to have to wait until September 1st of their junior year. I feel very good about the dialogue that took place between myself, our coaches, and college coaches this last weekend. A lot of coaches seem to be understanding the importance of this move. I didn't have a lot of coaches talking like they were finding ways to break the rules. We could all do that. We could all figure out ways around the rules to get you to college. But I want to enlighten you all to something that's happening. And that is the amount of transfers that are taking place at the college level right now are higher than ever before. It's not right. College coaches are getting flooded on their phones and their computers with the information of how many college players are transferring out of their universities. It could very well be that a lot of these players were players that committed to their schools and made these life decisions at 13, 14, and 15 years old. And so what happens is maybe it's the glamour. Maybe it's the fact that you walk onto a college campus at 14 and there's interest in you. The college coach loved how you looked at 14 and you see everything that you think is important to you, but what do you really know? And as an inexperienced family, unless you've had other sons or daughters go on to college, what do you really know about what to look for? What kind of due diligence takes place in knowing that we are compatible with our future college program? That's the biggest danger. The glamour and the relief of committing early gets done early, but it's not the end of the story. In fact, the end of the story really happens with what type of employment, what your kids are doing for a living, what's the balance in their happiness versus what they can provide. I mean, we've talked about these things in other areas. But it really starts with this decision being made so early in the game. Hopefully this legislation will keep us a little more balanced and keep the stress off the younger divisions, 10 and unders. I'm very proud of our competitive 10 and under teams. But for most of you, you need to be careful on specializing in positions too soon for some of these kids. At 10 and under, there's still a lot of emotional and physical development that needs to take place. Do we really need the pressure of stats, runs for, runs against, batting averages, different things like that at 10s? I don't think so. Now, I know you hire performing 10 and under teams. These are part of your game. And I'm not asking you just to take it out right away, but I'm asking you to make sure that it's balanced within the minds of your players to make sure that they're not driven and obsessed by those numbers. My biggest hope is that our 12s and 14s can go back to playing the game for the enjoyment of the game. So many of you don't even know what I'm talking about because you entered our culture playing for the scholarship. You came into travel ball knowing that college coaches are handing out scholarships left and right. I mean, I think honestly, in my opinion, it's over a 90% return on your investment that your daughters are going to go to school. And that's something else that I can reassure you about, is that they're going to go to school. I just don't know where and I don't know when it's going to happen. But I do know that now it's not going to happen until after September 1st of your junior year. I'm excited about the influencers because I think you can create legislation, but ultimately the influencers, the people that others follow. So there are certain college programs that if they decide to go to a 12 and under event, other coaches are going to do that. So I hope those influencers take the responsibility seriously and know that overall for our sport, it's not in their best interest. And I promise that you 12 and under players, and eventually if the college coaches start to phase out of the 14 and under events, we're going to do our job of developing our younger players. You're still in the oven. You're developing physical skills. You're developing emotional skills. You're developing behavioral skills. We can still, and we plan on getting creative and staying ahead of the industry. We can still show coaches what's going on with your development. I believe we can do that without having to put the college coaches in the stands. I don't believe it would be healthy for our 12 and 14 and under teams to see college coaches sitting in the stands knowing they can't say anything other than just, I'm interested, and they want to sit in the stands to watch us develop. It's almost like having a Hollywood producer sit in the studio and watch you practice singing. Oh, I'm not here to watch your performance, I'm here to watch you develop, but wouldn't that still create a certain type of pressure and a self-awareness that we would be worried about them not liking us? That's why I think eventually clearing out the 12s and 14s and us doing our job to continue to communicate with these coaches on what our players are doing developmentally wise. Who's in the oven? What does it look like? We have a lot of plans. We have some great ideas. We're going to be collaborating with some other organizations on getting creative on how we can best present not only our developing players, but then really make it efficient for our juniors and seniors. There should be some obvious thoughts of, oh no, what's going to happen July 1st of my junior year? Everything's going to happen so fast and I'm only going to have a small amount of time to make my decision. If that's what you're concerned about and you're comparing it to the 4 or 5 years that we've had when you were committing as 8th graders and 9th graders, don't worry. It's going to be best that you don't commit until your junior or senior year. There's a maturity that can take place. You have more experience. There has been more time for you to understand and learn what it is that's going to be right for you as you continue through the recruiting journey. When we first entered the recruiting market, nobody was recruited their junior year. They were only recruited their senior year. Please watch our podcast. Please look at some of the other things that we have available for you. We did a great podcast with Amanda Fried-Kachka and Melissa Roth about what recruiting was like in their days of playing, and that was almost 10 years apart. It's going to be okay. The biggest thing that I want to convey across to you is that it's going to be okay. I'm not telling you that because I want you to believe something that I don't know. I'm not telling you that because I want you to believe that you're more happy than you really should be in this organization. I'm telling you that because we have the experience. We've been through this. We are working extremely hard, like I said, not only with college coaches and communicating with them, but with other organizations and creating other ideas and platforms so that maybe not everything is so expensive when we need to showcase our players. And we're also working with our coaches within this organization to make sure that they understand their role in helping you navigate through this recruiting process. So that's a little bit about where we're at right now. It's the middle of June 2018. And for this first phase and this first step in the recruiting, in this new recruiting age, I'm extremely happy with what appears to be the right intent. And that intent is to protect you, the families, you, our players, to keep you emotionally balanced so that you can enjoy this process as much as possible. Stay tuned for more updates, and we're going to keep you informed, and we're going to stay ahead of the curve. So all you've got to do is find out where we're speaking, listen to what we're saying, and I promise we're going to lead you the right way.